Hello and welcome to Knights of the Game Table, where I'm going to be sharing with you 5 sweet Orc tactics from Warhammer 40,000 9th edition ever since that new codex dropped. Now, the Orcs have always been a contender when it comes to competitive play, and straight after a brand new codex comes out, there is always a rush of people moving to take advantage of all the new rules, and if you're ahead of the curve, that can make a massive difference in your tournament results or even just playing with your friends. But whether you like competitive play or you just like playing for fun, having cool, sweet combos and tactics that you can bust out to make your army more effective is always fun. So let me share with you my top 5 tactics from the brand new Ork Codex. At number 5, it has to be Makari the Grot Shield. There is a stratagem in the Ork Codex called Grot Shield, which basically says you can pick a single Orc infantry unit and it cannot be targeted as long as there is a Grot infantry unit closer to the enemy. And Makari has all of the keywords you need. In addition, you can play with Makari without playing with Ghazghkull Thraka, and he can go into any of the Orc cults, which means you can literally put Makari in any Orc army and pull off this combo. Essentially, if they want to shoot the Orc infantry unit, they're going to have to kill the Grot infantry in front of them, and Makari has a 2-up invulnerable save. The frustration they're going to feel at shooting at Makari with all their weaponry only to see you roll 2 or higher over and over again is almost enough to completely deter them away from shooting that Orc infantry unit, which of course is going to be a huge threat in your next turn, as you can use the jump to get them straight across the battlefield and attack them with the same Orc infantry unit that was not an eligible target, thanks to little Makari. At number 4, we have the Death Skulls Runt Herd Grot Objective Secured combo. That's a bit of a tongue twister, that one, but let me explain how it works. In previous editions of the game, Grots, or Gretchen, had the objective secured ability, which meant if they sat on an objective, they were troops, they can come in units of 30, it was almost impossible to get them off of that objective. Now, in 9th edition, they've made a change where Grots no longer have objective secured, even though they're troops. However, that doesn't matter if you take a Runt Herd, because the Death Skulls give the objective secured ability to all Orc infantry, and so therefore the Runt Herd will have the objective secured ability. Now, what's great about this is it means that that Runt Herd absolutely counts as having objective secured, and so against anything your opponent has, unless they also have objective secured, the Runt Herd will hold it on his own. Where this gets really fascinating is if your opponent does have a troops unit with objective secured as well, because in a contest between 2 units that both have objective secured, the next paragraph says the owner or the person that controls the objective is the person that has the most models nearby, and those models do not have to have objective secured. That means if you have Death Skulls and a Runt Herd in your Grot squads, then all of your Gretchen will now have effectively objective secured. Technically, it's the Runt Herd that has it, and then you just use the bodies of the Gretchen to make up for it. But this brings back those good old glory days of Gretchen securing objectives and your opponent having to get through 30 Grots before they can actually try and take that objective for themselves. At number 3, we have accurate Orc firepower. I know it sounds crazy. Most people are used to playing with Orcs and they only hit on 5s. The benefit of that means you pay a lot less points for Orc firepower because, you know, it's kind of considered to be less accurate, and also they tend to get a lot more shots, which in a way kind of makes up for it. But there is a way to get very, very accurate Orc guns across your entire army if you're playing as freebooters with Flash Gits, especially if you bring in the character known as Captain Badruck. Now, Flash Gits are a specific Orc unit. They're a heavy weapons choice that have 3 shots at strength 6 with an armor penetration of -2 that do 2 damage, which in many ways is like a alternate version of a plasma gun that the Orcs get to use, right? Yeah, it's maybe not strength 8, but it is 2 damage. AP -2 is still pretty strong. So this is a very powerful weapon. The Flash Gits themselves typically hit on a 4 or higher, which is a little bit more accurate than your average Orc, but still terrible compared to Space Marine. But that 3rd shot kind of makes up for it. However, if you play as the freebooters have a clan culture that means the minute you kill 1 unit, your entire army gets +1 to hit for the rest of that turn. And what's great about this is it doesn't specify that it has to be in close combat. That means if you bring some maxed out squad of Flash Gits, because you can bring them in squads of 10, and they all have this really, really cool gun, that's 30 strength 6 shots at AP -2 doing 2 damage each. That is a lot of firepower. if they start shooting, they're going to be hitting on 3s instead of 4s, which actually makes them one of the most accurate units in the game with that amount of firepower. If you have Captain Badrock next to them, they reroll 1s to hit as well, and he's got a generic aura ability, so it doesn't have to specify a single unit. That means you could take 3 units of 10 flash gits, each unit pumping out 30 strength 6 shots for a combined total of 90 strength 6 shots at AP -2, doing 2 damage each. And all of those shots are going to be hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, providing you've killed at least 1 unit with something else. And with the amount of mortal wounds that can be dealt, in the psychic phase, and of course with deathcopters by flying over things in the movement phase. Now, of course, you're probably going to have to use one of the units hitting on 4s to be able to kill that first unit. But if you're clever about how you shoot, then once you take out that first unit, the rest of the units are going to be able to fire hitting on 3s. Or maybe you could take some shock attack guns to take out another smaller unit first, so that then these guys can get the +1 to hit. Either way, it is a crazy amount of firepower, and accurate orcs are something to fear, because now they're deadly in close combat and they're deadly at shooting. At number 2, we have 3 knobs on Smasher Squigs. Now, 3 of any individual unit is the most you can take according to 9th edition. But the real issue with taking 3 of a unit is which detachment you're using, because a patrol detachment will typically only allow you to use 2 slots for a specific type of unit, which means if you're playing a patrol detachment, you can technically only have 2 knobs on Smasher Squigs. But where this gets interesting is if you take a squad of Squig Boys, you're allowed to take 2 knobs on Smasher Squigs without it taking up any slot in the detachment. Now, considering that Squig Boys are fast attack, as is the knob on Smasher Squig, that means that we can take 1 squad of Squig Boys, 1 knob on Smasher Squig, and then 2 additional knobs on Smasher Squig without taking up any slots in the detachment, which is cool, and it enables us to use this particular combo. Now, the knobs on Smasher Squigs have a very specific rule. When they complete a charge, you roll 5 dice, and for every dice that comes up a 4 or higher, the unit they charged receives a mortal wound. Now, 1 knob on Smasher Squig may do 1 or 2, maybe 3 mortal wounds if you're really lucky, but 3 of them are going to do a ton of mortal wounds, which is going to average at something like 7 mortal wounds to a unit, and there's not much in the game that does that many mortal wounds. In fact, this is one of those abilities that I'm pretty sure will end up getting nerfed if people start abusing it. So you want to be using this as soon as possible, because this is a serious amount of mortal wounds you can pump out. Where this gets even more interesting is there is a stratagem in the Ork Codex book called Unstoppable Momentum that says that once a knob on Smasher Squig completes its charge, if there is no enemy models within engagement range, it can charge again. Now, with 3 knobs on Smasher Squigs, there's a very good chance that either the first one, the second one, or the third one will completely eradicate a unit just through mortal wounds alone. If it does so, it will satisfy the criteria of not having any models within the engagement range, and then you're going to be able to charge again, once again, doing even more mortal wounds. In fact, that puts your output up to something like 9 to 10 mortal wounds across the 3 of them. The knob on Smasher Squig is such a powerful model that I think taking 3 of them is an absolute no-brainer, and I know that a lot of my strategies moving forward with orcs are going to evolve around this, because they're capable of not only holding their own in combat and getting across the battlefield very quickly, but the mortal wound output and the double charges are going to make for some serious tactical play. Which brings us to number 1, which is an absolute insane amount of close combat in the first turn of the game, thanks to the new ability, the War. Now, orcs have often been known for getting a first turn charge. The typical combo that was done in 8th edition was using a psychic power called the Jump to enable a large squad of orc infantry to teleport 9 inches away from your opponent's miniatures at the start of the game. And then through re-rolls and bonuses to charge rolls, you can pretty much secure a almost guaranteed charge in the first turn of the game with 1 unit. However, thanks to 9th edition and the new Ork Codex and the War, it is possible to make a charge with 3 units on the first turn of the game using this combo. And here's how you do it. First of all, you're going to have your standard Ork infantry unit, your weird boy who's going to do the jump on the first turn. But war bikers have a 14-inch movement. And when they advance, they move a guaranteed 6 inches. You don't roll for it. That gives you a 20-inch movement. You are only 4 inches away from your opponent's deployment zone, which is easy enough to connect if you can make a 2d6-inch charge. The problem is, normally you can't move, advance, and charge. But it is absolutely possible during a war, the first phase of the war, to move, advance, and charge. Now, on initial reading of this book, many people are going to think that only applies to orc boys, but actually actually it applies to Ork core and Ork characters, and Warbikers are an Ork core unit. Now, considering the Ork Warbikers are actually pretty phenomenal in close combat, and because of the war, they're going to get +1 to attack, and if you bring them as Goths, they're going to get +1 to strength as well on that charge. Each of the Warbikes is going to be able to have something like 4 strength 5 attacks on that initial charge, and you can take Warbikes in squads of 9. Now, because they take up a fast attack slot, if you're building a patrol detachment, you're only going to be able to have 2 squads of these. Of course, you can have more if you build out a different detachment. In fact, I can see people taking an Outrider or fast attack detachment specifically so they can maximize these Warbikers. But being able to get a guaranteed charge at the beginning of the game is a no-brainer, and the WAR totally makes this possible with Ork Warbikers. The only thing you have to do is to make sure that your Warlord is capable of performing a WAR rather than a Speed WAR. There are certain characters that can only do a Speed WAR. Of course, Gaskell Thraka can do both, so maybe just take Gaskell Thraka and you can do both. But if you imagine coming up against an Ork army in turn 1, and you receive 2 squads of 9 Warbikers coming at you with 4 attacks each, which is 36 attacks per Warbike. Of course, these guys are going to be hitting on 3s, and they're going to have a strength of 5, and there are all sorts of different buffs that you can get, so that 5s and 6s actually generate extra attacks as well. This is an insane amount of attacks right at the beginning of the game, and is going to prove that Orks are going to be a very serious contender now that Ork Codex has dropped. Do me a favor, let me know what you thought about the tactics in the comment section below, and of course, if you have any other tactics that you'd like to share about the Ork Codex, we would love to see them. Please feel free to write them down below and share them, so that way, everyone can learn from all these new cool stratagems, abilities, and tactics that are out in the book. Please don't forget to click like and subscribe so you can keep up to date with all of the different videos that we create on the channel. And if you would like a free PDF that teaches you how to find more time to play, how to paint miniatures faster, and how to level up your game, then all you have to do is look for the link in the description and you can download a PDF that we created specifically to help you do that. Oh yeah, and it even tells you a few tips on how to get miniatures for cheaper. So go download the guide and I'll see you in the next video.